Bink.
This is encoded with Bink.
Live. It says we're live. I don't see a picture yet.
Not yet.
Actually, no, I didn't look at the stream settings. We're at low latency. We're not at ultra low latency, Brett. I'm sorry.
All right. That means the funny bits will be slightly delayed.
I'm going to continue for just a few more seconds, so bear with me. I got to fix my filter thingy here, so I am the same size as everybody else.
Yes, please. That's not what I want. I want this.
Savoring savings.
Ooh. It's convenient. Splat. Splat.
Almost. No, not quite. Well, I don't understand why
take-
we're so freaking wide. It's like we're 2-to-1 instead of 16:9. Because you'd think if we were all 16:9 aspect ratio and there were 4 of us, then we could all be in one corner of a screen. Yet
You'd think.
we have this ultra wide look, so I have to put letterbox bars above and below us so we all fit.
We're ultra widescreen.
Yeah, it's true.
Yay! The first YouTube comment is concerning Jurassic Park being online. I have no idea what
Seems
you're talking
appropriate.
about. Ah!
I think we're all the right size now.
Hmm.
And if we're not, then, that would be bad.
What it is.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we're all
Closing out the
ultra wide.
filter.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, see, and if I were, I can make it look different. Hold on. I can actually fill the screen with us,
Okay.
but it will cut off our sides. See what I'm saying?
Not yet.
Maybe.
No, yeah. Now, yeah.
Zoom.
So
Okay.
we could all be a little, like, I could just
Zoom.
move over. We could
Mhm.
all be off center, but then see, I've got this other video underneath that I
Yeah.
would have to get rid of.
Just make the
Yeah.
arms line up.
Just,
Yeah.
no, it's not going
No.
to happen.
It's awkward. It's very Cthulhu-like. Stop it.
I'm sorry. I will at least center this. I will make it so that this is centered.
Do whatever you-
Center screen.
Do whatever
Okay.
you have to do.
We're done. I'm done messing around. Gotta move my microphone. That's bingo number 1.
Give him a set of give.
I've had a lot of coffee today.
Oh, excellent. I'll drink to that.
How is everybody's levels? I think Skype basically takes care of that for us, so that's not really an issue anymore.
Whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Pull up the dock.
I'm glad my upload is reasonable. Because you guys look like shy.
Really?
That's okay. The
Except Brad.
download speed won't help.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, mine has looked so bad recently that I decided to do this whole local video thing. Everybody else looks like Josh looks average. Brett looks average. I'm talking about feed quality, not your personal appearance.
Yeah. Mm.
And Jeremy has
I look average too. if
stunning
Not a little.
the last 2 weeks in a row. Jeremy's like 60 frames per second, ultra sharp and clear. I don't know why.
Red Ripper, man.
Oh.
Oh,
Maybe Skype's become a little more core aware.
apparently.
Mm.
Your
Well,
upload
let me-
must be good, and whatever
Let
you're
me,
using
let me see
now.
what my task mangler's doing.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking there.
It's super bored. 5% CPU
Oh, I'm up to 15.
on your Threadripper.
Yeah. Who's
I-
doing the work?
What?
here?
What are you doing?
What?
Yeah.
Skype's using up about 8. It's got 2 different threads going. Well, I take it back. It has 6, but 4 of which are doing absolutely nothing. And yeah, it's not even like pegging one core. It's spread out over a couple of them.
Man, I'm only 86%
Yeah, I thought-
idle right now. Oh, man.
4% and running at 4.1 gigahertz on a
Oh,
3600X.
7.5. Well, this is a the old first gen.
Anyway, well, that's all very exciting.
It's riveting. That's why the people come.
One person was just asking about the Twitch stream. I don't have it set up to do 2 simultaneous streams. Sorry. I think you have to use a service to do that because I cannot, from OBS, simultaneously stream to 2 services, at least not that I know of. So if that's something that they have implemented in a new version, then I need to update because it would be great because I have the bandwidth. I have fiber. I can do 2 at once. But, all right. One final thing, and I'll be ready to go. Sorry. I don't have the show notes pulled up. Just that little minor detail.
Yep, you probably
Yeah.
want those.
Yeah, my send is only like 1.1 megabit.
Wonder if there's a way to up that. Because I'm sure your webcam can push it. You have the 920, right?
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
supposed to do 1080 up with Skype, right? It's supposed to like override.
Camera 920.
Same thing I'm using.
Speakers test. Webcam settings. Let's take a look and see. Brightness, camera control, 60 hertz. White balance is fine.
I'm sending it 2.
Yeah,
It bounces
it's
down to
not-
like 1.8, but it goes up to 2. Same with the receive.
This is
Hmm.
why you tune in live, by the way,
Oh,
Yeah.
This it's
Yeah.
to hear this kind of discussion.
We just sort of read out what our task manager is telling us.
damn it, man! You've
Yeah.
parked your mouse pointer in my square again. Get it out. Stop it.
Now, kids,
Stop it.
stop fighting here. We'll turn this podcast around.
That's it.
Get that damn mouse pointer off my curtain.
It's on the right ears. I actually have to look at the ear where it says R or L to know if they're in the right ears. That's sad. Audio levels are real low.
Low.
Let me fix that because I have it attenuated slightly.
But you were a little clippy last time, actually.
Yeah.
you
I'm
notice?
I'm redlining.
Yep.
I just need to turn my own mic down then. How about that? I'll reduce my volume for the good of the site.
I don't know. You sound a little quiet to me. I mean,
So I
Crank
turned all
it
my
right up.
gain off. Like
forget it.
Brett, I use this microphone called the Quadcast.
Oh, I've never seen that. It's pretty cool. It lights up.
It has
Very nice.
it has this control knob on
No
the bottom
way.
that you can rotate
That
and
is-
you get louder and softer.
I wish I had something like that.
Yeah, it's
It's
cool.
shocking.
It's
Mhm.
special.
You should look into
I guess
it.
it's really only for special people.
It's all good here. Too good. Okay, good. You just started cooking.
You know what?
Stop
This is
for, we can't stop for 45 minutes. We're about to get going. We're about to cook ourselves.
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right, let's go. Start recording.
punch it.
Recording has been
Punch
started.
Chewy.
Show notes are somewhere. They're in Edge, Microsoft Edge browser. I recommend it to no one. All right, in 3, 2. Hey guys, welcome back. Well, no. Hold on. Where's my housekeeping stuff here? All right, in 3,
It's at
2.
the top.
Hello and welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 597, being recorded on GeForce
Eve.
Starts the X3080 day. Hold on. Last time. I'm serious. Hey guys, welcome to the PC.
Are you sure you want to start?
Now?
Now?
Now.
Now.
Push it
Okay.
real good.
Yep.
I'm pushing it real good.
That may have been our outtake for this week.
And we're done.
Ryan, if you're watching, I know your pain. I used to be just like these people, trying to interrupt your flow so you couldn't start the show. All right, in 3, 2. Hello and welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 597, being recorded on September 16, 2020. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sprumberg, and I'm going to be good tonight.
Okay, I'm going to hold you
That's
to
a
that.
lie.
Compared
No.
to-
Lie.
We are live on the internet right now, Brett. So you need to be on your best internet behavior.
Mm.
What are the 8 words that we
problem.
can't say on TV?
Yeah.
There should be several more added to that by now, I'm sure. Let's quickly get some housekeeping out of the way. You can find out when we go live for events like this, like our podcast or other random streaming events, by signing up for our, we used to call it the spam list. It's just the email update list. That's all we use it for. Go to pcper.com/subscribe. You'll get an email when somebody sends it. Brett has been sending it lately, like an hour or two before we go live, just to give you fair warning so you don't miss a moment of this magic. And speaking of this magic that we're producing here, we have a Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/PCPer. You can become a patron, a PCPer patron on Patreon, if you want to help us, pay the bills and distribute the podcast and that sort of thing. But let's move on.
Well, wait, one more thing. Remember,
Yes.
if somebody does actually become a member, we will read your politically correct name.
Are we still
Live.
doing that? Okay. If
Well,
you're
we
getting
can.
the alerts, go ahead.
We can.
Yeah, knock
We
yourself
can.
out, Brett. I take zero responsibility for that choice.
It's just that, there are certain messages that, we're going to have to filter, but most things we will.
Boring.
Yeah, please insult one of us.
Oh,
Don't
I'll
bring
read
up any
that.
hot button topics.
In fact, I may pretend to get one just to do that.
Yeah.
As long as you give us money.
Sebastian is a huge nerd, pledges
Yeah.
$1. See, something like that. It's something
Exactly.
innocuous is the
He's
word.
he's out of focus and doesn't sound good, and his audio is clipping.
Yeah.
There's the
Yeah.
salt.
Again. I'm going to pause here for a moment to pretend that I'm actually ready. I'm giving myself an edit point. To go to Josh's Twitter. What is it asking me to do? No. Because we have a burger update coming up next.
Nice.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Oh, look, we follow each other. Okay.
Gosh, that's
Aw,
good.
That's nice.
Josh.
Oh, so nice.
Okay. And now the moment that we've all been waiting for all week. Josh, please guide us through the burger update.
This is called Frito pie. In there are 2 patties, smothered with red chili, paprika, all kinds of things like onions and beans, and served with fries. It's an interesting looking beast, but it was certainly tasty. So it's no buns on this burger, but it was essentially a chili burger, but really good. But the Frito comes from actual Frito chips on the bottom that get all kind of, soaking up all the grease and juices, and yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's superb. So you'd enjoy it.
Nice.
I would enjoy it. Who would enjoy it?
Well, okay, you may not because you're a veterinarian.
That's right.
You could just pick out everything that isn't an onion.
You could just eat the Fritos off the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that are soaked in the beef juice. Yes.
Yes.
'Cause that's really what taking a stand like that is all about.
Yes.
It's all about pretense. Something happened. Something
What?
happened today.
Something wonderful.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Let's go back to that browser.
It's
shop.
funny. It's kind of a monolith looking thing if you view it in the right way.
Well, actually,
So what
let me-
you should do is get into your monkey costume, start dancing around it and hitting bones on the ground. But that could be very not politically correct in today's.
It may also be the only possible way you get one if you
Right.
post that
But
video.
Did someone say, "Wah"?
It's the RTX 3080 Founders
What?
Edition card.
You gotta lower it.
It works on the stream.
Oh, okay. You're right. It does.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm completely ignoring the webcam I have set up for our local call and using my own video. So sorry if I'm literally, that's all they can see. Anyway, this is the RTX 3080 Founders Edition card. Review embargo was up today. We were able to do unboxings the other day, which some people have a problem with. But hey, come on. Social media influencers and YouTubers love unboxings, and when you stagger the embargoes, you just create hype. Kind of like when you reveal a video card in a video game instead of actually officially unveiling the design of it, but that's another story that we'll get to. But this is it. This is the RTX 3080 Founders Edition graphics card. And I don't know. I mean, I've immersed myself in this for the last week and a half or so. What does everybody else think about this card? The specs, the pricing, the performance?
It's the second coming of the Radeon 9700 Pro. I mean, it just obliterates the previous market of the Radeon 8500 and the GeForce 4 Ti series. I mean, it's no joke how much faster, how much more features. Well, I mean, you get a few more features, I guess, but I guess the features are about the same, but they're usable.
Yeah, RTX is real now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your real boy RTX.
Yeah.
And which is better than real. Never mind.
Yeah. No.
But anyway, yeah, no. I mean, that was one of the first times when I was reviewing stuff that I was truly shocked and impressed by how much better a product was, how much faster it was than the previous generation. I mean, it was no joke. You could play games like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor on a GeForce 4 at, up to 1280 by 1024 and not, you'd be down in the 20s and 30s at the advanced graphics. But then you suddenly got this 9700 Pro, and you can run it at 1600 by 1200 with 4xAA at really 45 to 60 frames per second. I mean, it was a fantastic improvement over the previous generation. And again, NVIDIA at that time, they were rendering their GeForce FX, which was problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, AMD had, ATI at the time, they had a good 7-8 months of really they were dominating. NVIDIA released a AGP 4X. What was it, an AGP 8X? It was the AGP 8X version of the GeForce 4 Ti. And it didn't obviously add anything in terms of performance. NVIDIA just kind of did it again, except that now that they've got kind of a two-stage punch. The 3080 is faster than the 2080 Super by a significant amount. It's faster than the 2080 Ti. And the current AMD top end is the 5700 XT, which is about at 2070 Super, 2070 performance. And I mean, we've all heard rumors of the RX 6000 series that will be coming out late October. But NVIDIA's got a jump on them right now. And the 3090 coming out next week will be another jump higher. I mean, it's just, we don't know what the RX 6000 is going to be like. We've heard rumors. Some things it may be competitive to the 3080, in other ways not so much. I guess some of it depends on software. I mean, they've got some ray tracing hardware in the RX 6000 from what we understand with RDNA 2, but we don't know how well that's implemented. We don't know the software support, any of that stuff. And so, I know RTX is a really controversial technology. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people think that it doesn't add enough to a scene, but it causes a huge amount of performance, drops, that it's not worth it. I mean, there are some areas in like control which are just jaw-droppingly good, and then you go into other areas, it's like I don't see a difference in between RTX and non-RTX. Same thing with like Metro Exodus. It's things when you get into like Minecraft RTX where you really notice it in such environment that RTX is a good thing. Same with like Quake 2, because Quake 2 non-RTX is 1997 technology.
That one's a good example. Yeah.
Those are the best too, because those are fully path traced. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If it's fully path traced, it's a completely different experience when it's just the water or shiny object reflections or shadows. There's some games where it's literally just ray trace shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it looks like
Kratos Remastered, we're looking at you.
Or Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I think, has ray trace shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really add anything to the experience. If you're actually looking at the character model, like, oh, I see the shadow cast by her hair is like in real time. That's not the same impact as when we saw the RTX implementation in Minecraft, which was just staggering because then you have real
Control. Like, more games like Control are going to be possible. It makes this real. So I think there's going to be more draw now, and people are going to be seeing it as kind of far less as a waste, especially if more games come out to take advantage of it.
Well, and you can play it at a reasonable resolution with it turned on now, whereas previously you had to count on DLSS, which, as Josh pointed out, existed previously but wasn't great in implementation, whereas the DLSS 2 seems to be much better. And so now you can actually play with it and not be fighting using your...
I think that Battlefield 5 did no favors for RTX whatsoever. I mean, that was kind of the big thing they talked about, and they had these corner cases where somebody's shooting a flamethrower and behind you, and now you can actually see the reflections off walls and stuff. And then you actually play the game, and it's like I don't really see a difference, but my frame rates are half of what it should be. And when you're in a Twitch game, this really sucks. So I'm just going to turn it off, and I'm going to be pissed about it because you sold me a bill of goods that is not good at all. So
exactly. I think the pricing is everything with this launch. $699. Because if you look, the 1080 Ti at $699, which launched in March of 2017, was such an amazing card for its time. And yes, the pricing had gone up, and $699 is not what we used to have to pay for a premium graphics card, but this was their top end graphics card that year. 1 year or 2 years later, the 2080 comes out at the same $699 price point, and it has roughly equivalent raster-based 3D performance, but adds RTX features that we weren't ready for that yet. It should have really started, I think, with demos. Like, have NVIDIA release RTX demos, come out with cards at the same price points as the year before, or the previous generation. The Pascal 1080 was $499. If the 2080 had launched at $499, and NVIDIA, just hear me out. If NVIDIA had launched the 2080 at $499 and then released these really beautiful demos, like traditionally, we used to have new technology in demo form. You could download the demo, and as long as you had a card that supported those features, you could view it. And even if it was only 15 frames per second, you could at least see what it would look like. And that might drive you to adopt it the next generation. And it'd be a showcase for developers as well. Instead, what we got was first gen technology in a card that had a $200 premium so that you could experience first gen technology in all of a handful of titles.
Promised titles.
Yeah, they were.
That was one of the problems. You had like
there's like 25 titles, and 5 or 6 actually came out with RTX.
Yeah. Oh yeah, months later, the number was still very, very small.
Yeah,
and DLSS was interesting, but it's really just resolution scaling. So it is internally you render the game at a lower resolution. It was a factor of like 2/3, I think. So you render it at about 66% of what's going to be output. Then you upscale it and sharpen it a little bit, and use some kind of AI magic to fill in some of the gaps and make it look closer to native, but it never really looks as good as native. And it really never, the way that reviews were focusing on screenshots and things with the first generation, like the Digital Foundry article and various outlets that looked like at a still frame, DLSS on versus DLSS off, and you could see a major reduction in detail, in sharpness. So
but much like ray tracing, you don't notice it with your eyes when you're playing it.
Well, sometimes you could, like if you had like tree branches rendered against like a uniform background, like tree branch against blue sky, you could see there was definitely a blurriness to it, a blockiness to it, that where the render quality definitely fell down. What they did is their AI became a lot better at finding those high detail areas and then kind of attenuating the rate at which they were decimating and then reinterpolating in those areas, and paying special attention to the high detail or high contrast spaces, so they didn't throw away a lot of that visual sense, and they were able to reconstruct it. So their AI models got better, probably. Who knows what's going on inside there exactly. But all we know is DLSS is quite a bit better visually.
Now, you mean like the 2.0?
Yeah, 2.0. Yep.
Yes. And the other big thing about the new implementation of DLSS is you have different user selectable quality levels, which is literally just your being enabled to select the scale. So if you want normal or balanced, that's the old DLSS. It's like 66 or 67%, I believe. And you can also choose quality mode. In my testing, I only used quality mode, which is somewhere closer to 80% scaling.
Right.
But I don't remember from the call we had way back when that was first introduced. But the stuff is out there. You can look it up. It's significant difference between the performance mode and the quality mode for sure. And
how did your review come out anyway? What's the bottom line, or take us through the middle of it?
Well, what I should do, because apologies to the watchers or the viewers and the audio podcast listeners, we didn't even talk about specs or anything. Ultimately, we're talking about something that is double the CUDA core count of not the 2080, not the 2080 Super, of the 2080 Ti. We were talking about a GPU in the GA 102 as I switch screens here. And we've been talking a lot about ray tracing. Let's just start at the beginning. This is Ampere. GA 102 is the GPU. Still has 68 SMs. That's the same SM count, symmetrical multiprocessor, or streaming multiprocessor? Streaming multiprocessor. Count of the RTX 2080 Ti. But there are 2 times as many CUDA cores per SM now. So it goes 2x from 4352 to 8,704 CUDA cores.
They've done some interesting things in there, obviously. I mean, it's kind of like, I think we had talked about this last week. It's like how AMD, had a module that was, 2 integer cores and a shared floating point. And this is kind of like 2 CUDA cores to, the previous SM. I can't remember their individual little, core thing. But anyway, yeah. It doubles up. So you've got a shared int and floating point group, and then a dedicated floating point 32 group, and then you've got your tensor cores, and on that you've also got an RTX core sitting in there. And they've done things that you now can do a simultaneous int and floating point. You can do a simultaneous floating point and floating point. And it's essentially in some certain areas, software loads, you've doubled your floating point performance. You still have to do some, int loads, memory loads and stuff like that with the N32. But I mean, you've really improved the throughput of all of those streaming cores. It's they've done a lot of research and development, not only on those, but also memory access, L1 cache access, L2 cache access. And so it just runs so much faster. Well, I mean, maybe not faster, but the throughput is so much better than the previous generation. It really is almost a doubling in overall performance with everything that they have done.
Could this be character?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Brian. I was going to ask whether would you consider this SMT? There's a question.
Yes, exactly. Would you characterize this as like hyperthreading or SMT?
Yeah.
Sort of, but yeah, I mean, it's just, the way the GPUs handle, threads and instructions and warps and all of that stuff.
Right.
It's different from a CPU dramatically. And so it's more like a multi-instruction, multi-output, a MIMO or a MIMD type thing. It's just at a massive scale. And so, yeah, I mean, you could say, well, it's kind of like SMT, but it's not, because of just the way it handles threads. I mean, there's like 144,000 threads in flight at any one time, and you've got X amount of warps, and it's really confusing as compared to just a CPU, where you can count threads and instructions and stuff. And GPUs, they have to think a couple of levels higher just because they're so massively parallel. Clear as mud.
Kind of. What do you think of that transistor count, Josh? 28 billion transistors in 628 millimeters squared.
It's a big chip. Samsung's 8 nanometer is it's seemingly a fairly dense process node. We don't know much about it other than rumors are that it is not yielding and binning as well as NVIDIA would like. And so I think that, the A100 was released, and that was a TSMC 7 nanometer part. And we know otherwise that it's just a massive, massive chip. 8 nanometer stuff, the density is not as good as TSMC 7 nanometer. It's kind of more of a Samsung 10 nanometer plus. They call it the Samsung 8N, I believe, because it's specifically for NVIDIA. And so, they kind of tailored the process to what NVIDIA wanted. And I don't know if it has worked out nearly as well as NVIDIA actually wanted. And we're going to find out more about it come tomorrow when they release cards into the marketplace, and we will find out how many, or a reasonable amount, how many were actually released.
Dozens. There are dozens of us.
There's dozens of us. The only thing that I've heard that's more or less concrete is like China has gotten a couple of thousand cards. Yeah. The entire
country
of China.
Wow.
8 nanometer yields not.
So this isn't quite as bad as the gen, like the 10th gen Intel launch, but it's not good. That's what you're saying. Can you imagine trying to...
The top end, the 10900X or K?
10900K,
yeah. Yeah, which literally was a couple of thousand throughout the United States. And now you can get like the KF for, $550. It's I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think it's going to be better. But... yeah, but that's a pretty low bar to compare it to.
Yeah. Everyone still has the potential of getting that bad. I hope not. Everyone hopes not, except maybe AMD. But there is still that potential that, you get them for the pre-order day, and then you're just looking through system builds in the hopes of finding one.
Oh, you view tomorrow as pre-order day?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
Some places you can.
What the PS5 went on pre-order tonight as well?
Correct, sir.
Well, tried to. There's some.
Yeah. No, apparently they sold out in under an hour.
Nice.
I thought that was tomorrow that they were going up for pre-order. Okay. Great. All right. Well, but just to wrap up specs, I just wanted to mention there's new memory here that's NVIDIA exclusive, the GDDR6X. We talked about these specs last week. We've been talking about this. It's 19 gigabit per second. I don't think they originally announced the data rate. So it's a significant boost over the 14 gigabit per second data rate of the 2080 Ti. Although the 2080 Super had a 15.5 gigabit rate. It's a 320-bit bus for a total of 760 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. So you're at 3/4 of a terabyte there. So it can move a lot of data, basically, along that PCI Express 4 bus.
Which makes such a huge difference.
In PCI Express feature testing,
yes,
it certainly does.
You got to talk about your test scenario and how all that went, and game response and performance and wattage.
We'll do that. Yeah. First, I just want to show this image here. This is what the 2 PCIe 8-pin to a single compact 12-pin adapter that ships with the card looks like.
Oh, it's attractive, isn't it?
It's a big...
It's an Audi.
Big
you need that Velcro.
Yeah, you got to Velcro off your ties and try to. I don't even. It's a cable management nightmare, and there are power supplies coming out. Yeah. The power supply is coming out right now with the built-in cable, but still, the way that this adapter, the way that the port is angled, the input is at this 45-degree angle, And if you do it straight on around and wrap it around the edge of the card, you're blocking the GeForce RTX lighted logo on the top.
Yeah.
Put it up above, you're partially blocking the fan. If you put it down below, you're partially blocking the fan intake.
It reminds me of
have RGB adapters for this thing yet.
It reminds me of Japanese anime characters running with their arms pushed behind them.
You're talking about like the Naruto thing?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
We talked about this.
I only know that because I watched the news about the Air Force having a discussion about if you see these people, they may be doing a specific run that is based on Naruto, and that's I don't watch anime and I don't watch Naruto.
But you still knew.
Weird. Yeah, because I watched the news.
Yes.
Yeah, Area 51. We're going to have 250,000 people go and storm the gates.
I think they had about
a while back, Josh. What news do you watch?
Oh gosh, it was a year.
Delay. Okay.
It's been a long year, Sebastian, but it wasn't that long ago.
It seems like yesterday. You know what?
You know what I love? I love it how in Windows with multi-monitor, it likes to stick your cursor on one monitor. So I'm like, I'll just smoothly glide over from my Firefox monitor back over to OBS. No, I'm stuck in that monitor until I smash against the side.
Speaking of cursor, what the hell's going on here?
Oh, hold on.
Stop it. Am I pointing at it? I can't even see myself. Right there. That.
Yep, you got it.
It's gone. It's gone. They had another edit point. I'm making this harder for myself. No. All right. We talked about this last week. GPU test platform. What I used for this review is on your screen. It's on the review. Obviously, it's a 3900X, which did not make people very happy because they thought I should have used a 3950X, I guess. And then the Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi motherboard. That's I should have put X570, but anyway. 3600 CAS 16 memory, 32 gigs of that. And a 1,000-watt power supply. Windows 1909, because I didn't want to screw around with 2004 for this. It's the November 2019 update. And then the latest drivers, including the 456.16 press driver. I'm not sure if that's what's going to be released tomorrow, if it'll be a newer version of that that's WCL certified or what have you. But anyway, that was the test platform. So obviously this is a PCI Express 4 capable platform. Let's just go through a few of the benchmarks, just some of the really basic stuff. Here's TimeSpy. This is a 2560 by 1440 benchmark. And as you can see, a pretty big gap between even an overclocked 2080 Ti and then, of course, the Founders Edition 2080. I benchmarked on these are all new benchmarks, the 1080 Ti Founders Edition, the RX 5700 XT reference card from AMD, the 2080 Founders Edition card, 2080 Ti, and because I disassembled our Founders Edition sample when I put together our Corsair Hydro X review, I didn't want to mess around with that, so I used our Asus Strix OC 2080 Ti, which has a slight boost clock advantage, and then the Founders Edition card.
You were just trying to make 2080 Ti owners feel slightly better.
I was, but really, the Founders Edition is so outrageously overpriced and has been that it made more sense to do an aftermarket one anyway. But we don't need to look at average frames per second in 3D Mark TimeSpy. That was just there for reference.
Was that 2K res?
Yep, that's 1440.
Oh, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
The TimeSpy Extreme is a 4K test.
Right.
So as you can see, it scales up. This is just our first indication. This is obviously a synthetic test, but it's a pretty good way to differentiate the cards as far as their potential performance. And all of them kind of finished in this order throughout. Sometimes the XT traded places with the TI at the bottom of the chart, but otherwise, we were always looking at a much bigger gap here when you went up to 4K from 1440. So the new card really seems to target 4K performance. You can absolutely use it as your ultimate 1440 or ultra wide card, but it's a 4K card, really. Here's an actual game benchmark. This is a DirectX 12 game, Metro Exodus. This is also at 1440. The high preset and the Founders Edition 3080 managed 115.5 frames per second on average. That is not a whole lot higher than the 2080 Ti in this test. There's a significant boost over the 2080 Founders Edition at 78 frames per second, but in this test, the 2080 Ti was already at 100 frames per second. So 15 frames is not that big of an advantage there. The actual percentage increase is 15.5% basically over the Ti and 47% over the 2080. So an inauspicious start to the actual game benchmarks. Now,
quick question on 1080p. Were you not going to run 1080p on this?
No. 1080p.
That's a quick answer.
Yeah, well, because if we were to run 1080p on a card with this much power, I have to say it would need to be on an Intel platform. So.
Got
to get the old 1090K out.
Yes, that's the next step, is benchmarking this card on the 10900K.
Okay.
And see what kind of deltas there are. I'll do a follow-up article on that or a follow-up video or something. But yeah, I don't think there's any harm in using a 3900X in a realistic testing scenario, which I consider, if you're the kind of person who's spending $500 on a CPU, it's down to like $430 now, but you're spending around $500 on a CPU. You're investing another $300 or so on a motherboard, and you're buying a $700 graphics card. You're not a 1080 gamer unless you're a competitive gamer, in which case you're just a completely different market. You're probably on a high refresh 1080p monitor. So I look at this as, and maybe there's an argument for the 1080p 240 hertz. Like you'd rather have that ultra high refresh than say 1440 at 144 hertz. But that's kind of where I was going. That's why I like to test at least a game or two at just 1440 high instead of ultra, to see how close we can get to that 144 mark on average.
Well, I mean, most people, I would say probably 60 to 65% are still running at 60 hertz monitors, if not higher.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 144 is, relatively new in the past 3 years, where we've seen them go down in price, where schlubs like you and me, I'm talking to you, Jeremy, can actually afford those.
As long as there's a good sale.
Yeah. You're in a good company, so.
Yeah, the whole 1080p argument is one that I've had. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing here, but it would have been simply a test of CPU bottlenecking to try to do that with this card.
Right, yeah.
This processor. I know AMD is absolutely fantastic this generation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with any of the Ryzen 3000 parts. It's just that if you look at the numbers, if you're at 1080 or below, Intel's at the top of every gaming chart, and that's just the way it is. So, if you look at 4K with Metro Exodus, there's a bigger gap. You're up to a 64-ish% increase over the 2080, 26% over the 2080 Ti, and this is probably its worst showing. You move up to the Division 2, which is it's a much more AMD-friendly title traditionally. But regardless, this is a game that's not as challenging at its high preset. And this is where I was really exploring high frame rates. And so this one, 174, almost 175 frames per second on average with the 3080, which was a big jump over the 2080 Ti in this game, which only averaged about 137 frames per second. And the 2080 was at about 108. So the gap there is a lot wider. We're talking about 28% over the 2080 Ti, 62% over the 2080. It gets bigger at 4K. We're at 66.8% increase over the 2080. Moved up a little bit to 27%. These are kind of your average numbers for this whole review. Just think of in terms of it's about 25% to 30% faster than a 2080 Ti, and it's about 60 to 70% faster than a 2080. And here I did Far Cry 5 at 4K because it's just not a powerful enough benchmark really anymore to do at like 1440 high. Even 1440 ultra is kind of ridiculous.
It doesn't scale very high.
No.
It either has.
I mean, it doesn't even hammer the CPU all that much.
I don't know.
There's a limiter in this?
I think so, because I could not get it over 120 frames per second. So I was immediately.
Yeah, it's probably a physics issue
or something. But I mean, I got it up to 122, but that was It didn't make any sense. Like the 2080 Ti was hitting like 119 to 120, and then the 3080 was hitting 122, which doesn't make any sense. So I was bottlenecked somewhere, and it could be the CPU. The people who said that this was not a fast enough CPU could have been absolutely right. I could be wrong. I was hoping that by going 1440 and above, I'd eliminate the GPU as a bottleneck, but apparently, or the CPU.
CPU, yeah.
But maybe
Apparently
even if
it's become a thing
high,
again.
Yeah. So we're going to have to do a little bit more testing. Like I said, throw the 10900K at it, see if it goes above 120, see how the other games fare. But
well, taking some of the other reviews, and of course this doesn't hold true for every single game because some games there's almost nothing that the CPU is doing, but in others, especially at the ultra high resolutions, it looked like the GPU was spending time waiting for the CPU to catch up. And you'd see that when they were using like the 10900 to push it up, it'd still continue to get faster above the 9900.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was.
It's crazy to think that there's a GPU powerful enough that actually makes even the fastest CPU a bottleneck, even above 1080p resolutions. But that could be. I'll quickly go over the RTX stuff because that was the other part of this. Because this is the card, like we were saying, that actually makes RTX viable.
Is this where the acclaim that this is 2x faster? Is that where we can?
The clarification that Linus Tech Tips got was that it's 2x faster in fully path traced games.
Oh yes,
that would have been nice to know. Just like
so you can get 1,000 frames a second in Minecraft.
That's a caveat.
Asterisk. And we can talk about that, but on the marketing side of things, they absolutely should.
Have you actually played Minecraft RTX?
I have not.
Wow, you're
I'm missing
DLSS. I would imagine helps, but no, it does help. Yeah, you're lucky to get 60 frames per second with DLSS on at a reasonable resolution. It's a monster because we're used to 8-bit Minecraft where your video card has no problem rendering all of that crap. Yeah, no, RTX Minecraft is no joke when it comes to how much it beats up your card.
Speaking of things that beat up your card, there is a forthcoming game. There were 2 game demos that I tried out because they're beautiful looking RTX benchmarks, but they're not in any kind of shipping game yet. They're in development games where they've created a benchmark so far, probably with either NVIDIA's blessing or their help. And they were, what is the first one? Bright Memory Infinite. There's a game that's already out there on Steam. It's like a $10 game called Bright Memory. Bright Memory Infinite is probably the most beautiful looking game I've ever seen. I don't think it's fully path traced, but it's close. Like everything, like the lighting, the reflections, shadows, I believe, are all ray traced, but I could be wrong about that. It looks stunning. That benchmark is tough. On a 2080, it averages only 18 frames per second. It frequently dips well below that, depending on what's on the screen. That 11.61 99th percentile doesn't even tell the whole story. Like 99.9th percentile would have been like 2 frames per second. It's very, very stuttery on a 2080. It's completely unplayable. You move up to a 2080 Ti, and it has that sort of cinematic quality because it's only 24 frames per second, but it frequently dips well below that. And then you have the 3080, which is managing 38. So at least it's a smooth 30. The 95th percentile is 30.81. So it always looks fine on a 60 hertz monitor, but it's, not a high frame rate experience by any means. But if you turn on DLSS, and I'm only using the DLSS quality setting, not the performance setting or the balance setting, suddenly you're up to 68 frames per second, and it doesn't really dip below 50 very often. It looked very smooth on the monitor, and that is double the performance, literally, of a 2080 with DLSS enabled. So you go up from 34.99 frames per second with the 2080 to 68.22. So that was pretty much my only data point, other than we'll get into Wolfenstein here in a second, but that was the 2x that I saw, because I didn't do Minecraft or Quake. But any of the fully path trace stuff they're saying can be 2x. If it's very, very heavy on RTX features, that's where you actually get that 2x. But everything else, the average was 72% between the ray trace stuff and the raster-based stuff. And if you include, I'll have to bring that up here, if you include a beta build of Wolfenstein Youngblood, which apparently I did not properly format because I cannot expand this image, but that shows significant gains as well, 97-ish% at both with RTX and with DLSS enabled as well. Again, at the quality preset, but this is, 96.9 to I think 97% increase over the 2080. Here's with DLSS enabled, 133.5 frames per second with the 3080 compared to 68.1 with the 2080. So the improvement over the 2080 Ti is 48.5%, and it's almost a 100% improvement, 96% improvement over the 2080. So that's where you get your huge gains, and not in traditional DirectX 11, DirectX 12 raster-based games at all. Those are like 60%.
But you're still getting a pretty, 70%.
Yeah.
Averages. That's really good.
It's amazing.
Especially at that price point.
Yeah, factor in the price every time.
The problem is just the marketing angle. Why did you have to go on stage and say it's 2x faster than 2080 when you could have said it's 70% faster?
It is a massive 70% on average. No. It's almost twice as fast.
Yeah.
Like half again as fast.
Round it up.
Over half again.
Round it up to 1.75.
In some cases, it'll be twice as fast.
Exactly. Like, this is a card that for the same money as a 2080 Ti will get you 70% higher performance across the board. And if you're using a fully path trace game like Minecraft RTX, or the new Fortnite is getting path tracing, right? Or is it just some RTX features? But the some of their showcase titles will give you 2x the performance uplift. That would have been fantastic. And then none of the reviews today would have had a negative spin to them saying, hey, you promised, and the various other negative reviews today. So it could have been all positive. Instead, it was, well, temper your expectations because it's not actually 2x faster. And now, that brings the question, well, is the 3070 really going to be as fast as the 2080 Ti then? Are they overestimating that? Is that just marketing? I did real quick want to show what happens when you run on this AMD platform at, the native. Come on, mouse.
It's playing Breakout with you.
Okay. It wasn't this bad last week. I just wanted to really quickly show you. Here is the PCI Express feature test, which looks very bare here because I was running this offline, trying to be a good boy and not, upload anything before launch. 26.24 gigabytes per second, if you can even see that on the screen, bandwidth. And then if you drop it down to Gen 3, I was only getting 13.05 gigabytes per second bandwidth. So, yes, there is a huge difference in bandwidth. Did it translate into anything? Like 2 frames per second in one game. One other game was 1 frame per second higher on Gen 3, so it was just like the variance between runs. And I ended up not exploring that too much.
It's amazing what 10 gigs of onboard memory will do, and plus large caches on your chip.
Yeah. And I'll wrap up the nonsense here by just showing a couple of charts. One of them is board power. I don't have the fancy testing hardware, but it turns out that GPU-Z is extremely accurate because of the way that the card reports itself. We had a maximum of, I believe it was 331, As you can see, it was mostly peaking at 325-ish to 330 watts. And that's just the board. The board itself was pulling that much power. And that's just a little over the rated power, the total graphics power of 320 watts. So under full load, I did just 10x iterations of the Metro Exodus benchmarked at 4K high and just watched the behavior of the card during that time. And that leads me to thermals. And granted, this is open test bed. So this is, best case scenario. It's in a 22C room, about 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And
an open test bed, let me just tell you, an open test bed is not the best thermal thing. A case with good ventilation and partial positive pressure
gives you
is
better.
Really the best thermal type thing, because you will accelerate the flow out there and you keep at a higher pressure, so you get better heat transfer from the fins to the air because you've got a slightly higher pressure in the case. But anyway, I
agree with you.
What about for testing, though? What about for testing?
I agree with you most of the time, Josh, but there are instances with, the trend, I should say, to have compact ATX enclosures where the enclosure is probably so small that a card like this may or may not even fit.
No, that's that's bad.
And so when you have so little space between the front intake fans and the rear I/O panel, there's going to be some airflow concerns. And this card, it's about half an inch longer. It's not much.
It's not that much bigger.
But it's just enough that the cases that have said fits a full-size ATX card, or full-size GPU. What am I saying? A full-size GPU. This is a little bit longer than a full-size GPU. So I think high airflow cases with plenty of room are fine. But I personally have found compact ATX cases to increase the temps even with good airflow. The last one I reviewed actually did have sufficient airflow because it was just big enough inside. Like the internal volume was just big enough. But what I was seeing on the open test bench anyway in a 22C room was 77C. It would hit this 77 and it would just increase the fan speed to compensate. Never went above 77. I asked and I was told that it kind of targets a limit of 78, but my card was only hitting 77. So it's not
the
a
noise
hot
wasn't
card.
bad.
It's very quiet. I could not hear it over. Here's the thing. Back behind me, you can see this radiator.
Mm-hmm.
I was using this Corsair 240 millimeter radiator. At idle, it's silent because the fans don't spin. And then under normal gaming load, I couldn't hear it over the liquid cooler. So I haven't done any noise testing yet because I would literally be testing the noise of the liquid cooler.
So you're saying that NVIDIA did a really good job with the thermal solution.
As much maligned as this has been by people who've just looked at the pictures, looked at the modeling of how the airflow works, it's really well designed as far as I can tell. Now, I can't tell you that it's going to work perfectly in your case, and I haven't tested it in a case yet because I could just say, I'll pick a case, test it in that case, and pronounce it good. Well, it's not going to be like one size fits all. It's going to be case dependent. I have to test it in a few cases, a compact, a large one, a solid front panel, an open front panel, 3 fans in the front, 1 fan in the front. There's a lot of work that has to be done to accurately provide a picture of how this is going to perform thermally inside of a case. But I'll tell you this, the way that this cooler seems to work is it's drawing cool air in through the front, of course, and it has this rear exhaust fan. This exhaust fan is not the actual main exhaust. This area right here where there's nothing behind it, you can see through it. It's drawing some air in through here. Not much warm air leaves this way. You can kind of see it. If you hold something up against it, you can see just a little bit of movement. I could barely feel anything. It feels more like just heat is kind of radiating gently off of it. There's a bunch of air escaping through here, these fins along the top, and it's kind of directed back. And then the majority of the air actually is leaving through these huge vents on the front. So this front fan is pushing most of the warm air straight out the rear vents. The remaining warm air comes out the top, and then a little bit comes off of the back. So I'm looking at some of the aftermarket cards. I was testing with this 2080 Ti Strix OC card. And this is kind of your standard triple fan, aftermarket, oversized card, a lot of heat is thrown right off of the top of this card. Almost all the heat comes off the top. And a bunch of heat generally radiates off of the bottom as well. The Founders Edition cards throw heat out the bottom pretty much equally along with the top. Like you have really hot motherboards under these cards when they're running at load for a while, cooking your M.2 cards and whatnot. And that is not the case with the new design. It seems more efficient to me. So it's not as efficient as a blower would be for just getting the hot air out of your case. But for a card that's very quiet, that runs at a max of 78C, and I would have to kind of torture it in a case or look at some of the reviews. I'm sure Gamers Nexus has done some more extensive testing on thermals. But, I was waiting for it to be horrible. And I was just like, oh, great. My overclocked 3600 memory that I got to cast 16 is kind of already too hot because the heat sinks aren't very big. I'm going to be blowing hot air over those. And there was not much coming off of this. It was pouring out the top and, flying out the back. But anyway.
Well, it seems like a half step between a blower card and a, typical interior dissipation card.
I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that the PCB is, of course, it ends here. You have this unusual PCB shape. And this is just extra fins, any residual heat, I suppose. But,
well, the heat pipes cross through them. So they're definitely transferring heat up and down the card. So,
yeah, it all works together. I would like to see some more in-depth testing or do some more in-depth testing. But, yeah, anyway,
so let's
77 degrees.
We should probably wrap this up because it's an hour in and we've talked about one thing.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But it's a big thing, Josh. It's the biggest thing.
It is a big thing.
It's the biggest graphics launch in NVIDIA's history.
Yeah, I think the final question is, should 1080 Ti owners finally upgrade?
Yeah, probably.
Especially considering you probably still have quite a bit of value in that Ti. Sell it off for $400 or $500 because it's probably still worth that much.
You think?
I haven't looked at it lately, but yeah, graphics card prices on eBay are insane, right?
Yeah, well, that's stupid. People are buying that, right?
Well, look, we're not going to judge here.
Okay, you're right.
Judge them if they're willing to pay for it. All right, what was next on the list? Oh, the AMD stuff.
Yeah, RX 6K.
Yes, and of course, I got an actual press release email from AMD, so I dutifully wrote up my little news post I'm about to link to here. There we go, and it showed the design of the new Radeon RX 6000 series something. They were not specific about what model we were looking at, but they sent the media all this render and put it out on social media of a triple fan dual slot design with 2 8-pin power inputs.
Also the world's first wireless video card.
Yeah. No rear bracket on this, no I/O bracket. So,
it's a render.
I know.
Come on, man. Come on.
So, of course, let me go to one of the other links here because naturally they couldn't just leave it at this.
The J images? Did you pick those up?
Video cards did, so I don't have to.
All right.
Let's go. Hold on a second here. Another edit point. Yeah, here we go. Here's the J's 2 cents pictures. Okay. Jay offered real pictures of the card, not just renders, because this whole thing was like a Fortnite promotion. They were saying, go into Fortnite. Here's the area to go to. They give you some address. I don't really know how it works in Fortnite. And
it's a Fortnite creative. It's an island. Anyway.
Oh, okay. So go to this location on this one place.
Low res. That was the issue. Stupid looking.
So there are 2 more renders here, I guess, of what they were showing inside of Fortnite. And then here's actual photos of the card. And then since then, even more renders of the card have been published. Anyway, it's just kind of an open secret at this point. I don't know why they don't just announce. I have a theory about this, though. I do think it's hilarious that they're just completely aping the RTX 20 series design here. The inset, the way the top vent looks, the rear. Well, I guess the rear panel is different. The rear panel looks like a Radeon 7 again. minus the extra slots. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Josh?
This
Wake
is
up.
marketing. I mean, and marketing is the marketing does, and so you've got to I know AMD has received a lot of hate from this, and Nvidia has received a lot of hate from some of their marketing stuff, and some of it is reasonable, and some of it is not. But Nvidia, AMD rather, they're kind of got their backs against the wall in terms of GPUs. And so all the hype is coming towards NVIDIA. They've got actual products. They got stuff for sale tomorrow. They had their whole 21-day countdown from 1999 to 2020, which was, it's just marketing. I mean, it's kind of fun to go back down memory lane. I mean, they do that all the time because I can't remember anything current. I can only remember my past, but that's probably because I drink too much. But anyway, segue. But anyway, yes. But yeah, I mean, they have to get some mind share. So I mean, they announced their Zen 3 is going to be October 13th.
I don't know.
And then the
RDNA 2
RX 6000 series 28th.
Yep.
So our DNA 2 will get, but we have no idea about availability of either of these products. I imagine Zen 3 will probably be available a month after the launch. That seems kind of reasonable in what they've done in the past, but I have no idea about our DNA 2. But yeah, they're trying to get some mind share back into their corner with a lot of this marketing stuff. And of course, somebody there was like, hey, why don't we do something with Fortnite? It's only the most popular game in there, and they've got a creative mode. Why don't we, slap together a model of our card and they can go visit it, and we can get all these demographics off of these people who are in Fortnite and running this and go and visit it.
Except iOS users, they aren't seeing it.
Yeah. Hey, but you know what? They don't even know what a computer is, Brett. So that's fine.
We'll talk about that later.
What's a PC?
After Josh goes to bed, we can talk about Apple stuff.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Here's my theory. This is what's been running around my head since this whole thing started, because they pre-announced so far in advance their announcement date, and they were waiting to see what NVIDIA had. 3080 comes out. I don't think AMD knows what the performance level or pricing of the new cards is yet. That's just my.
I hope they know the performance level.
No, think about it. Their last graphics card launch.
Go back and say that again. You don't think that AMD
I don't think they know the performance level yet. They haven't decided
of the RX 6000 series.
Think about it. Their last graphics card launch.
They know what it is.
They don't.
They know.
Here's why. This is good. The conflict on the podcast is good.
No, shut up.
I hate you.
Their last graphics card launch was.
He's coming over to your house.
Listen, their last graphics card launch was the 5600 XT. They didn't know what that card was when they launched it. They had a day one vBIOS update to change the memory speeds. They had left their board partners kind of in a bind because some of them had only shipped memory on the boards that could support 12, not 14 gigabit per second memory. There was this whole issue about whether or not companies like XFX were willing to overclock memory 24/7 the way that AMD wanted them to. AMD relaunched the 5600 XT after, like with V2 cards, like version 2 cards that had 14 gigabit per second memory on it. They had to change the performance level because after that 2070 knockout edition thing was announced at 279 that never really launched at 279. It was kind of a paper launch, but that drove down either the performance level or the cost, and they didn't want to lower the costs, so they increased the performance level. So it was just this weird situation where NVIDIA forced them to actually change the card's performance after the card had been manufactured. That's my point. So I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. They might have seen just how aggressive NVIDIA is going to be with this launch and said, you know what, we might be able to eke out a little bit more memory bandwidth. We might be able to do this, might be able to do that, maybe raise the TDPs a little bit.
I think they're going to be limited with memory, but you are correct in that they can adjust what they release in kind of their bins for higher clock, more power draw, more board draw, but they're going to have to then adjust fan speed and fan ramps and all that stuff. And so, I mean, you're right there in that they can tweak the design of the actual board level, not the chip, obviously, but the board level. And so, yeah, I mean, they can do that. But I mean, you're talking a couple of percent, maybe 5% at most if they're super aggressive and they raise the board TDP by 25 to 35 watts, which is a lot considering they've already got the thermal design kind of set in stone.
Yeah, I was initially thinking the render of the triple fan, because the only render we'd seen previously was a dual fan design. It looked really just like this. So I was thinking that makes perfect sense. They're on 7 nanometer. It's going to be an enhanced 7 nanometer. By the time RDNA 2 comes out, it's more efficient. It's more performance per watt. But to see the big triple fan card that still has 2 8-pin connectors on it, we could be talking about a card that pulls as much power as a 3080. Potentially. I mean, I don't know if it really scales that way. I don't know if you could get much more performance out of these cards by just throwing a whole bunch of additional power at them. But I don't know. I don't think AMD wants to be in the position where they have to try to be the budget option. I think they really wanted to compete at the high end. At least you would assume so. So if an 80 CU card at a certain clock speed with a certain memory speed is looking like it's only going to be about 3080 level or maybe a little bit below. And I know there are people who said it's going to be between a 3080 and a 3090. What if they say, hey, we can pull out all the stops and actually have something that beats a 3090? I don't think it's going to happen, but I just think that, like you said, there's room for them to tweak this before launch. And I think it's far enough in advance now that board partners probably don't have products shipping to warehouses yet, like they did with the 5600 XT launch, where they were already sitting in warehouses with the wrong memory when the VBIOS updates were announced. Anyway, speaking of NVIDIA, Josh, this is generally your department. I don't know if you have many thoughts about the likelihood of this announced acquisition by NVIDIA of ARM actually going through. Is this going to pass regulators? Jeremy posted this.
China, U.S., UK.
The UK has got a little hard.
UK might be the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. is going to be fine with it. Yeah. China is going to be a special case because ARM China is its own little separate company.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you think that's separate enough to say doesn't go with the package?
Kind of.
Okay, so with ARM China, 51% is owned by CCP.
Yep.
Chinese Communist Party. 49% is owned by ARM. And so NVIDIA will get 49% of ARM China. And they still don't have the voting power to get rid of the maniac, apparently, who is the head of ARM China that has barricaded himself in the office and other crazy things. I don't know if that's been resolved yet or not, but yeah, they don't have the voting power to change out the head of ARM China. And so that's its own little special case. And I don't know if China can do much to impede NVIDIA purchasing ARM. US and UK can. And this is an interesting thing because in the short term, I don't think NVIDIA is going to do anything to really mess with ARM. They're just, ARM is probably, I mean, we don't know for sure because we don't know the quarterly income of ARM, but it's probably around $1 billion a quarter. Just looking at, I think, 5 years ago when they were purchased by SoftBank, they were starting to get up into the 500 to 600 million a quarter range of the money coming in from all the licensing models that they do on the stuff, and since that time, they've had more CPU designs. Mali is now taken over 50% of all SoCs, and something like 85% of all TVs come with Mali graphics. And so they've grown tremendously in that amount of time from then till now. And so, yeah, I would think it's $1 billion a quarter. And we're going to find that out once, NVIDIA, if everything goes through and they're able to actually purchase that, then we can, we'll get some insight in what, ARM is able to do. For the short term, it makes more sense for NVIDIA to be hands off, let them do what they do, and then formulate a strategy where, maybe they both can benefit. NVIDIA has purchased Mellanox in the past year. And that's added significantly to their bottom line, and they've got products coming out, and it doesn't seem like there was a huge shakeup in that acquisition. It's not like NVIDIA has destroyed it like when they purchased the PhysX guys, the Aegea folks, where PhysX never ever took off, even though they kind of wanted it to, but it just never really did. Networking is going to be a positive thing, but ARM is it's powering billions and billions of devices, and NVIDIA doesn't want to screw that up, but we don't know what their grand strategy is going to become. I don't think that NVIDIA has the ability to become the only ARM supplier in the world. That's going to piss off way too many people, and there are other things like RISC-V and SI5 guys that have an open source and a more easy licensing type structure for others to design chips. And there would be, probably would be if NVIDIA tried to say, okay, every ARM chip is going to be NVIDIA, and we're going to produce it, and we're going to be producing billions of chips, and you have another choice, we're cutting off all the licensees, Apple, you're out. That just isn't going to happen, because the world overnight is not going to go that way, and they're going to, they're going to give NVIDIA the big finger, and they're going to go RISC-V and
same if
other
NVIDIA
options.
Just tried to crank up the royalties on it. They'd benefit in the very short term, and then give it 5 years tops, and everyone's off.
Yeah, and so we're going to see some changes just because Jensen and those guys are aggressive. And they want to make money, and they want to be the end all be all. And I think one of the areas that is going to be a net positive is going to be machine learning, deep learning with the ARM, really power efficient, really effective. Well, I don't know if it's effective or not, but relatively powerful for half a watt to 1 watt to 2 watt. And you roll that into CUDA, and suddenly you have all these applications that do not require a 220 watt GPU to be able to do a lot of this stuff. That you can do some machine learning at the edge at 10 to 15 watts rather than having a whole PC running a 220 watt video card. And so I think that's going to be an uptick for their partners, for NVIDIA. Just because software has really been the issue with machine learning. They're, TensorFlow and all these other guys, they're out there. You can do a lot of stuff with it, but CUDA makes it all a lot easier. And the guys that I work with machine learning in my company, they all use CUDA because it's got great tools. It's effective. It just works. They can throw code at it, and CUDA does a lot of the background stuff to get things running well. And so that would be a massive.
Tell them which company to buy next.
Yeah. Well, think about one of the latest supercomputer flavors of the month. Top Dog was based on the chips from ARM.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's definitely something to building a supercomputer on ARM. Plus, think back to their high performance computer, and NVIDIA's high performance computer platform. What was it? The DGX A100, right? That had EPYC CPUs in it as the general processing unit. I can't imagine that sits well with them for them to have to buy CPUs from their competitor. On this, I can't imagine that they wouldn't want to. Well, the next platform, let's make this all on our own, and they can't build that. Why not buy it? In ARM, clearly building a supercomputer at scale is capable of doing it. So this seems like a reasonable thing for them to pursue. Yeah. They're very hungry for it. AMD is doing it. AMD themselves, obviously, and the graphics and GPU industry, duh, and CPU as well are putting supercomputer platforms out there. NVIDIA wants a piece of that action as a single source.
And part of the presser
last year, NVIDIA did announce that CUDA will run on ARM. Yep. I mean, it was a pretty big announcement, and now that they get NVIDIA ARM technology in the server platform, who is it? Cavium and Marvell, with their really large server chips. I mean, they're probably going to partner with them with some stuff with their GPUs as well as those Cavium ARM chips, the Thunder, whatever, I can't remember. Too many names, too old. But that's another area. I mean, they're able to then leverage these partnerships to sell more big GPUs into these data centers.
It makes total sense.
Yeah. Well, part of the presser was that one of the biggest things they're planning on doing on the Cambridge campus in the UK is designing an ARM-based supercomputer, and they're hoping that's going to attract a lot of the younger kids coming out of the computer science program to stick around and start working on it with them. And of course, it's going to be built with the CUDAs, the interface, and with Mellanox doing the interconnect. So it's almost going to be a ground up one done by NVIDIA, which is
that's kind of an all-in-one,
right?
Yeah.
But it does give the whole monopoly thing a little bit of a worry.
I think there's enough supercomputers out there to go around.
But I think that's mostly right.
I mean, in between x86, and if they don't, Apple's got billions of dollars in their war chest, and if NVIDIA starts screwing with them, they can litigate NVIDIA into the ground.
That's exactly.
I don't see why they would screw with them, though. I mean, they're a good. They're a good customer. They're a good licensor.
Here's the thing. This is another wild, unfounded theory of mine. What if this is all just the long game, where Jensen finally gets his revenge against Apple? The only real reason that he's buying ARM is just to take away, because he knows they're moving over. Everything is going over to ARM now. NVIDIA buys ARM. It's like, we have you buy the balls,
the core.
Oh, but you know what? So? Here's the thing about Apple. War chest, and they've already changed architectures. What was the original? I can't remember, like 6305, and then Motorola 68000 series, and then PowerPC x86 ARM. Yeah, they don't care. They can get around this because they've got their nice walled garden.
From a GPU perspective, go ahead.
They can tell the customer base is like, well, what do you mean everything I bought is now never going to work again? Screw you, buy a new one. And they do.
And they're like,
okay.
So
it's an exciting day.
There's plenty of grumbling in the Apple community.
We're back on Intel because we listened to you, and because NVIDIA took away our IP licensing. All right, what's next? Oh, real quick. PlayStation had an event today, Sony did, and they announced pricing and availability of the upcoming consoles. And shock, they had to match Microsoft's Series X price of $499.
The Series S?
X.
It's X.
And then Series S from Microsoft, which is $299. Well, they didn't match that. They have the PlayStation 5 digital edition at $399. So it's more expensive. And I liked the snarkiness on Twitter about this, of course, is the PlayStation 5 going to compete with the Series S? Making a point of making it S, not X. Anyway, Series S, now that I've actually looked at the specs, it's pretty anemic compared to Series X.
They did some little, almost bait and switch stuff on that.
Yeah. And 20 CUs? 20 CUs? That's it?
Yeah.
20 versus 56 or something?
Yeah.
So
it's not.
There is no reason to buy that console.
Nope. Well, and
do you think this
the
does
older
to the
upscale stuff isn't going to upscale like it does on the X. They're doing this half-assed sort of thing.
To Brett's point up here, what does it do to developers? Well, they have to develop for the S. Because that's the lowest common denominator. So now it's going to have to be
saying.
the X is literally just the pro version. It's like,
you know what? But
Microsoft
is probably saying, hey, you know what? You developers already have to develop on PC that goes from Intel integrated up to the RTX 3080. You can handle just these two performance slots. Come on, guys. Don't be so lazy.
Well said. I liked the gesticulation too. It was very good. You made full use of the entire window there.
Yeah,
it was wide.
It was very wide. What else do we have to talk about? I think that might have been it. Apple crap.
No, it's okay. I mean, you can if you want. I'll throw it out there.
A14, baby, 5 nanometer.
That's exactly one of the I thought was the most interesting thing that they were talking about, other than their services. But the A14, it's a nice look at that. Backing up real quick. They released the new watch. It's kind of an anemic show, really. It really wasn't much to it.
It was watch and iPad, right?
Yeah, services. They threw out
a few. Services too. Wow.
Well, this Apple One thing they threw out there. Fitness Plus actually looks pretty good. Basically, if you're into kind of monitoring your health and fitness and things like that, to be honest with you, Apple is well, okay. All right. Skip Josh then. But Apple is actually the #1 watch seller in the world now. I didn't know that. I found out about that recently. But they're #1 and for like a
Who'd you find out from Apple at an Apple event?
No, I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On Apple.com.
Stop it. You know what? I take a lot of ribbing.
No, it goes in your wrist.
Whoa. The solo cam. Hold on. All right.
What?
Sorry. I forgot that was even there. It's actually working now. Okay. Never mind. Not what you think. Just a single shot of just me, which is not necessary and not really wanted by anyone.
All right. No, I think the most important thing that happened is they renamed Space Gray to Graphite.
You're really stretching, aren't you?
No, but seriously, right there. No, Josh was right. I'll jump. Blood oxygen sensor is really cool. The health aspects are really neat.
What viewers are seeing right now are the lovely new pastel colors. They look like the candy Smarties, kind of like those ultra pale.
You tell me that colors don't sell, and
I like the squared off profile of this now. I hope the new iPhone looks like that too. I like that.
And I think the event is characterized by the things that didn't release, such as the new iPhone, such as the new new Apple Silicon Macs, such as their Apple, what was it, AirTags, stuff like that.
I need you next time, Brett. Next time, I'm gonna give you an acting note here. I want you to lean back and put your hands behind your head. You're like, I think this event was more about what Apple didn't announce. If you think about it
now,
nice square corners, Josh.
But now I can't hear you.
So see this is my Samsung Galaxy S9 that has a blood monitor, oxygen monitor sensor.
Can I see you wearing it on your wrist? Can I see it attached to your wrist?
You put a finger on it or something, or how does it do that?
Why do I need to know 24 hours a day what?
So that it can tell you that you're dying.
Oh, dude, I'm dying. I've been dying since the day I was born.
He has a point.
News.
Really once you reach 40, it's all downhill.
But
it probably was all downhill from 30.
Seriously, part of the event was a half dozen people talking about my Apple Watch saved my freaking life. Truth. Hey,
paid shills, Brett.
Huh?
They were all paid.
Dude. Okay. Having been in the medical
industry. It actually
industry.
happened to a friend of mine. Seriously.
I mean, you can get a couple of very basic heart monitor type stuff that is like, hey, you're in AFib or you're in VFib. Because, once you're in VFib, it doesn't matter what your Apple Watch is telling you, you're pretty much unconscious. It's just it's not like I've got a superior atrial I can't even remember stuff anymore. It's been 20 years. But I mean, there are other, heart rhythms that it can't detect. Sure. And if you're having certain type of heart attack, there's a thing called Tombstone, which is your QRS, your T wave. If it gets really long and it looks like a tombstone, then you're having a pretty significant heart attack, but you may not actually be feeling it, and your watch won't be able to tell you what the hell it's doing, because it just can do almost a normal sinus rhythm from the electrical contact in your wrist. So anyway, I mean, it's not, you don't want to trust that with your life, believe me.
Apparently it does cover a few situations that you may not be aware of, which is a reasonable thing. The only other thing that they've done, which is cool, is they further gamified fitness, which is okay. That's fine.
I'm not okay with the term gamified.
Why?
Never.
Why?
It's too buzzwordy for
All
me.
right, I'll think of something else.
And
but anyway,
thus
the
the
A14
news of the week.
I'll just jump down to the A14 was at 5 nanometers is actually a pretty cool thing, and that's a peak, a sneak peek at maybe what's coming in their Silicon Max. So that'll be fun to see some benchmarks when they release that. It's in an iPad, so we'll be able to run Geekbench and stuff on it and see how it performs.
Well, really, all we need are iPads, right? iPads with keyboards, or not even keyboards, because you just use Siri for everything.
You know, I'm waiting for Air Gesture, but yeah, something like that.
I'm waiting for the MacBook Wheel. So picks of the week. Jeremy, start us off.
Well, I mean, since we found out that PCI Express 4.0 don't mean shite when it comes to your brand new 3080, there's actually a decent deal going on up here for a 990K.
Well, I'm on the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, you're on Josh. It's okay.
You're not on me. You were not on me.
But it's 30% off. So it's gone from the 750 that we've been used to for way too long down to 530, which is a pretty decent bloody price for this. And if you are planning on picking up the 3080 and you're running something significantly older, you will benefit from it. The only bad news is that you get Marvel Avengers with it.
You can give it to a friend. Give it to a loved one.
The friend that you want to lose? Apparently, it's not that good a game.
Jeremy, I think a few weeks ago I may have seen this at 490.
Yeah, in Canada?
Well, okay, no,
because that's the big thing. Is
I just did a conversion into real money.
Not in Canadian pesos, but in real dollars.
Jeremy. But in real dollars, that's $400. It's $399.
Yeah,
that's good. $399 for that is not bad.
$499 or it's $490 or something. But $529 is pretty good.
$529 Canadian. $529 would be a horrible price here.
Dave,
in the US.
it's an Intel. Of course, you can't upgrade the CPU with a newer CPU and a new motherboard.
Oh, that's true. You know what? What if you are invested in a really high end, 9th generation board? Because of course there's that LGA 1200 to take into consideration. So if I had the high end ROG board, I would not be very happy at having to, either downgrade to a lower end board or buy like a $700. Whatever.
Yeah, well, Intel.
I know. Platforms have to change. Josh.
Okay. This is a actually pretty good deal. $350. I mean, Westinghouse is not a great monitor manufacturer, but what they make is perfectly serviceable. The grade of panel is fine. It's 100 hertz. It's not going to be G-Sync. It's FreeSync. But kid I helped build a computer for, he bought one of these for $450 and he was extremely happy with it. Overall, it matched in terms of colors to my more expensive Alienware that I bought a couple of years back. It's just a really nice widescreen 100 hertz 3440 by 1440 monitor. And it's at $350. It's extremely reasonable. I don't know how long this sale is going to last, but if you're looking to upgrade one of these, well, it just hit a really nice price point.
What is the display technology? I don't see that listed here.
I think it's an IPS.
Is it?
It's not VA.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's IPS.
Okay.
Gotcha. 5 millisecond response time. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I guess they're hesitant to use IPS because, of course, that's a trademark thing.
Yeah.
IPS-E or IPS-like.
Yes.
All right, Brett.
This is a cool store that their shtick is basically selling a lot of electronic components. But what it is that they essentially do is they take a lot of new equipment that has essentially gone past its shelf life or a little bit more obsolete. and they disassemble it into component parts, electronic components, assemblies, as well as straight up new stuff that are add-ons to like different boards that do things like laser sensing or acoustics or electronics repair and things like that. So they have all of these raw power supplies, wall warts, electronics and motors and project stuff and panels, like as you see here. Like I said, they disassemble brand new components that other companies have not been able to sell, and they sell for really cut rate prices. So if you're into electronics and you're into doing some DIY stuff, this is a cool thing. And I highlighted one component that may be useful to the audience, such as an ATX benchtop power supply converter, which is the second link in the show notes there. That's a way to convert for $16. It's a way to easily convert your benchtop power supply into something that you can use in your test bench to power different projects or to test different things, which is common, for people to have to do to test components or to build projects or things like that, to get 5 volts or 12 volts or something like that. It's for $16. It's a cool breakout board. Just as an example, but they sell a lot of cool electronic project stuff, and for very little money. And this is just to show you that as a Mac aficionado, I still know stuff.
That's the scary thing, is that you're actually really intelligent, yet for some reason you just have this preoccupation with these Apple computers.
I have PCs as well, but I tend to use Macs more often.
I was going to say, you have PCs, but you run Mac OS on them. But that's just personal choice. I don't like Windows 10 and Linux. I love Linux, and there are really good people in the community, but there are times when I'm like, just enough. I need to run X software, and I don't want to go through all these hoops. I just want to run native software sometimes.
Yep. Linux.
Although I will say, DaVinci Resolve is great. I've used it for the last few podcast edits, and my Emmy Award-winning, potentially unboxing video with tens of hundreds of views on YouTube was edited with DaVinci Resolve.
The music was beautiful.
Oh, the whole thing was sublime.
Yeah.
I've been going through YouTube Music Library music and just finding stuff, because I'm like, I don't want a content ID match. I just want to use the safe stuff. And I didn't know what kind of music was available. There's a ton. You can go by genre and mood and all this other stuff. So just playing it safe. I don't remember what the name of this track was. I answered a comment with the name of the track that I used. But yeah, that is all that we have for this week. This rambling hour and a half to hour and 40-minute podcast we've been doing so far. Hey, at least not 2.5 hours.
No.
And when I edit it down, it'll be like an hour and 15 minutes tops. So you're watching the live version if you're watching live. And if you're not watching live, I may edit this part out. You never know.
Maybe.
All right. The Patreon people will see it later, though.
They will. Yeah, they see everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's one of the Patreon pluses, is you get to see all the weirdness.
Although I haven't given in an offer to 24-hour live stream of my house yet.
No, don't.
That would be
awkward.
I mean, you could. There is a price for that.
Can you just point the camera at a wall and just run it for 24 hours?
There's a price. I think everybody has a price. I have a price. I don't know what it is yet.
So
if somebody offers it to me, I would hook up some cameras 24/7.
Yeah,
not in every room though.
Isn't your house filled with like 5-year-old mayhem?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's spilled out of his room completely. Anyway, anybody have anything else to add before we sign off? No. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed whatever this was.
Currently trying to kill a moth and spill my beer simultaneously.
So until next week.
I got a really big bushy tomato plant in the next room.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe it'll come and show it off next week.
Bring in the bushy plant.
I'm glad you said tomato plant, Josh.
Tomato plant.
Hey, speaking of bushy tomato plant,
yes.
Ask anything. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're right. I should have done that at the top of the show. Now nobody's going to see this. Question and answers, a.k.a. the mailbag. I want to bring it back. I have no problem editing it, throwing it up there on YouTube. Josh likes answering your questions. You need to ask Josh some questions. Go on Twitter @PCPer.
Someone already asked me about grounding their ungrounded house with all 2 plugs.
Just take a really
And I have
big
an
metal
answer.
rod and drive it through your foundation. It's perfect.
Water pipes, maybe.
Well.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, they don't allow that anymore.
Yeah. Well, they used to.
Well, you can go to, if you go to into your basement where the actual water pipe comes in, and if it's cast iron, you can still use that in certain places, because most likely that's going to go about 90 feet to the meter, and that should be enough grounding, because usually it's like a 6-foot metal rod, a copper rod that you pound into the ground, and then you put there, and it's grounded enough. And so with cast iron, 90 feet is going to be more than enough, unless they use PVC, which I don't think
That won't
many
ground
do.
very well.
No,
Not very well at all.
no.
So anyway, I just answered your question. I shouldn't have, but anyway.
No, well, we can always, use another one, or we can seed you questions. We just need to get this going again once the show, is back on YouTube. I think that'll generate.
Everybody
enough
wants
interest
to
be
see my
self-sustaining.
mailbag. Seriously,
right.
Anyway.
Or you can reference the electrical code and actually answer it for real.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Good night, everybody. I think it's safe to pronounce this post-show.
Dead.
Damn.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of water,
What?
freaking my county is replacing all the water pipes from our houses to the street, which means they're going to tear up my front yard, tear up around the side of my house, and they have to be in my basement, which literally about 6 feet away from me is where the water comes in.
Oh, jeez.
That's going to be exciting because
Oh,
they're
no,
going
your begonia plants out front. Oh, no.
Yeah. So my city, they copied Cheyenne. So Cheyenne redid their entire water thing, and they had they did all kinds of soil testing, and they thought, okay, these cast iron cement lined pipes are going to last 100 years, 100 to 120 years. And we're going to put those in, and it's going to work great. And Laramie over here, 45 miles away, with a mountain range in between us, thought we're going to do the same thing. And they did no testing of the soil. And it turns out the soil here is far more acidic and a higher level of, I think, oxygen than over there. And so these 120-year potential pipes went down to like
60?
50.
Oh,
Yeah. And so it's a big thing to replace all of these mains throughout town, because they've all corroded to the point where they're breaking quite often. So test your soil like they do in Michigan.
Yes.
Mm.
Michigan has a little bit of a history with lead in their water.
A little.
yeah. And history.
Recent.
One of the
history.
questions in YouTube, I'm confused about the 3080 and only 10 gigs of VRAM. Thinking of waiting because 10 gigs seems like a trap.
4K
Yeah,
textures.
it's only actually
the trap.
9.3 gigs. The other
Oh no, the rest is
700.
partition. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
No, not really. That was a GTX 970 reference, Brett.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I have yet to play a game that takes up more than 6 to 7 gigs on my 8 gig card. So I think 10 it's going to be fine for quite some time, because like Far Cry is like 4.5 gigs, and that's pretty detailed.
That's with HD textures
things-
enabled too.
Yep.
Yeah, and things like Doom, 3 to 4 gigs. So I think that they can do a lot of stuff with the memory that they have, and especially considering Xbox and PS5 are all kind of interesting partitions with how they do memory. I don't think 8 gig is going to be much. Doom Ultra Nightmare is the only game I've heard to exceed 10.
Are you playing in 2K? 1440?
Yeah.
Trying to think what it was.
Yeah, I
saw
mean, if
one
you're
of them
doing
go up
4K to 8K,
6.5.
then yeah.
I think that this is really some of the AMD marketing through either their channels or some of their influencers are really pushing the idea that, because they tried this with Radeon 7, where they had 16 gigabytes of RAM, but nothing could take advantage of it yet. And even I think Scott Wasson, when he was trying to demonstrate VRAM usage only made it up to maybe 11.
Yeah.
And that was with using like the virtual super resolution and then condensing it like down to your monitor, But 8K you absolutely can. But I think the concerns about this are partly perhaps due to the fact that AMD is going to have 16. But if AMD has a weaker GPU and 16 gigs of RAM, it doesn't matter. That was the problem with the Radeon 7. It could not take advantage of all of that memory because you'd be playing at like 10 frames per second. So if you use the VRAM for something else, it makes perfect sense. There are compute tasks that will take all the VRAM you can throw at them, which is why NVLink still makes sense, multi-video cards with one big pool of memory, but
why the 3090 is having an obnoxious amount of memory.
Yeah. Because it's basically
we
a
haven't even
professional card.
talked about the Titan version of that with 48 gigs.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Which is going to be what, like $3,000? Which seems
At
low.
least.
They're actually going to charge you just 2x the price of the.
Well, they did that with the RX. Like those were ridiculously affordable compared to the Quadros previous, considering what they could do.
The Titan RTX, yeah.
Oh no, the what was it? Quadro RX series. Like they started dirt cheap compared to the previous generation and what it can do.
They still reduce double precision performance on the non-Quadro cards, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really should play the latest Doom. I have not. In fact, the Doom before that is sitting on my hard drive. I've only gotten like 10 minutes into it.
Finally managed that one, and my neighbor shared his Steam, so I've got the Eternal. I just haven't even installed it yet.
Yeah, but I got 3/4 through Skyrim during lock-in pandemic, March and April and parts of May. So I still got to finish that.
You never finish Skyrim, apparently.
No, I don't finish anything anymore.
Well, that's also true.
Let's see. Any other questions in the YouTube? When is Sebastian going to graduate to beer like everyone else?
I was accusing you of not getting the memo on the gray shirts going around.
Look, I'm a black T-shirt guy. I have novel T-shirts that I bought.
There's no excuse for you ignoring the gray shirt tonight. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
If you'd actually sent me a freaking message before I came down here, I have a nice gray Sierra gaming shirt and I have a gray Castlevania shirt I could have worn.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you just didn't read it. Or maybe I didn't send it. One of those is true.
You didn't send it, Brett.
Okay, that might be it.
What else? I'm playing solitaire. Do I need a new card? That's Bruce.
When all those cards come screaming out at the end, yes, you do.
Right.
No one's done a Texas Hold'em
refresh rate monitor, and
your GT 710 is not going to cut it anymore. Upgrade.
No.
I need to benchmark the original Quake on the 3080. Wonder how that would go. Actually, it wouldn't go.
GPU device not supported.
CPU rendered anyway. I tried that on the 10900K just to be an ass, and I think I was like 428 frames per second. Or no, 528. On a benchmark I never used in the review. I loaded up FreeDOS on a USB stick and ran old DOS benchmarks on a 10900K.
Really?
Yeah. I should have streamed that.
Still got like the massive and from Quake 2 that there were some custom benchmarks. I'm gonna have to see if they run in RTX. They should.
I think so.
Yeah.
Windows 10 would be.
No, I think I did. I think I did load them up, but massive one, and then there was I can't remember the other. But at the time, they were heavy duty benchmarks.
Wonder how many people watching are actually going to attempt to order a 3080 morning.
I'm going to try, but I don't know. If I can get any, then I'll just stink and review it. But I don't know.
I'm tempted.
I don't think I'm going to. I don't have much faith that that's going to happen.
I'm not going to. Let's just say that there's not been a whole lot of activity in the add-in board partner segment yet about like reaching out to seed reviewers with samples or anything.
I hear there's some delays in that space. Not going to be available.
Asus, their high-end stuff is not going to be there. Some Strix, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see. I saved some money to do this, but I think it's going to be all for naught.
You never know. What if like a Best Buy or something happens to have it? It seems like
have you noticed my luck?
If it weren't for no bad luck, you'd have no luck at all.
No luck at all. Yep. All right. Well,
it's going to be a month.
Go to the bathroom, and it's like midnight, Sebastian.
Yeah.
Yep. It is my time. Midnight. I'm stopping the recording.
Thanks.
We're still streaming though.
Oh well, exciting.
Yes. We won't stream you going to the bathroom though.
Nope.
No.
Don't stream and stream.
I can't even imagine trying to wait in lines right now. What a mess that would be. No. Scalpers have pre-orders available on eBay. Great.
Sure they do.
I'm not sure they do. That's not for real.
I thought eBay had prohibited when the whole iPhone thing happened in 2007. There was such a problem that eBay actually changed their policies so that you couldn't do that anymore. You had to like have in hand and show it, and they told you to put your username on a piece of paper or something and show it in the picture that you had it and it was yours. But
it still doesn't going to stop Photoshop.
Well, yeah. Plus, eBay has relaxed a lot of their policies over the years, and it's gotten infinitely worse. NVIDIA's going to kill the add-in board partners? No, they need their add-in board partners. They're
I think the yield isn't there. I think they're just behind the curve on that.
So if NVIDIA had first dibs, obviously the Founders Edition cards are what was first, and then add-in board partners are going to have to wait until there are more good wafers.
I think the skullduggery here is actually probably at a minimum. They really want to be able to sell these.
That's not what people want to hear, Brett. That's not popular. There's supposed to be a conspiracy and it's evil.
There's definitely a conspiracy here. They're trying to keep all the money for themselves and force people to buy FE editions.
Yeah, as Bruce said, there's 28,000 million transistors. 28 billion or million? 28 million.
Billion.
28. Oh, he said 2,800,000 million. I think that's a little high, but yes.
Yeah, but his heart's in the right place.
Well, yeah, 3080 will really be $800 plus
English
GPU.
billion or US billion.
It's like the 2080 Ti. Yes, it launched at $999, but it was really $1,200 and up. I mean, let's be real.
It was.
You
could never get it under.
The aftermarket one, wherever that is. This was, I think, at launch 1340 or something, 1360.
That's crazy.
And the Founders Edition card was $11.99 when you could find it in stock, but that one went way up. I don't know if it's just because the reference card is the one that you can easily get all the blocks for it if you want to put it underwater like I did.
So I was checking out EVGA's B-Stock site the other day, and they've still got 2080s and 2080 Ti's in there selling for stupid numbers. With the 3080 obviously being released, anybody with a brain can't really would not buy one of those at their prices, which they're like mid fives or,
Not everybody follows tech news, Brett.
Okay, there's that. But my point is that people who do should swing by their B stock every now and then, because in my opinion, they shouldn't be selling them for those prices, and they're going to have to lower them. So if a 2080 to 2080 Ti is still an upgrade for you and you can't swing the 600, those should drop.
Here's why they won't.
All right, tell me why they won't.
Because I feel antagonistic tonight.
Do it.
Because there's not going to be any 3080s to buy. So they can charge whatever they want for the 20 series. Because if you want a graphics card, you'll pay $500 or $600, whatever it is, for 2080 in the B stock store.
$549 B stock.
Because otherwise, you're going to look on eBay, and these things are going to be $1,200.
All right, you may have a point. We shall see.
In fact, I bet there's going to be more than $1,200 because these are higher performance than a 2080 Ti.
Of course,
which still sells for $1,000. So
yes, but if you have to search inside yourself, going like, you know what, is 2080 Ti performance, is that good enough for me?
No, it's not.
And you have to be that kind of person.
Actually, it really is for me, because you know what I use my graphics card for?
Tell me.
DOSBox.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, I don't really need anything above the integrated graphics on an Intel processor, except those don't offer integer scaling. So that's why I have a dedicated graphics card in my system. It's a 2070 right now, simply for the integer scaling.
Right. If you're that kind of person, then that kind of purchase is not for you, and you have to spend more money.
Yeah.
EVGA has a
There's an
V-Stock
850.
2080 Ti
I
for $1,300 right now.
Yeah, well, that's their high-end stuff. Oh, actually, good point. That they do have some power supplies that if you need to upgrade your power supply, EVGA's got some 750s and 800 pluses at
By the way, can I just
$110.
jump in here and say we're not sponsored by EVGA, although we seem to do an ad for their V-Stock store every week.
Sure.
It's just a good place to shop for deals on things.
Yeah.
Unless if you consider $1,300 for a 2080 Ti.
No, not that. But $110 for an 800 watt PSU might be, considering the PSU shortage.
Yeah.
The answer to all of this, it's 1049. Oh, that's not bad. 1049 for the water cooled version.
Yes. Keep scrolling. There's more. Yeah. Let's resample that a lot.
Why is Heather Locklear trending in the United States?
Uh-oh. Every time somebody like that is trending, you worry that they might have passed on.
No, she's past your prime, though. So.
No, Denise Richards and Heather Locklear friendship timeline.
Yay. Worth it.
What, did you lose the moth?
I just had to see. That's stupid. Life is stupid. People are dumb.
Hey,
I'll
Josh,
drink to that.
that's toxic. Okay.
Yeah.
True, but toxic.
This is all going on the Patreon stream unless I cut the end of the video in YouTube Studio, which I made you. Warning you.
Yeah, apparently the kitties are hungry.
I had to do it last week or the
You
week
did?
before, whichever week, because I
What was it?
completely forgot to hit stop streaming. So I went to my desktop and I was in my Skype account.
No,
Cut all of this. What am I doing? I was hitting Alt F4 as fast as I could. But, if anybody wanted to hit me up on Skype, they could probably figure out my username pretty easily. Anyway.
Mongo Lover 69.
What's in the box?
Balls, 420.
The box.
There, I don't see a lot of questions coming in.
Well, we didn't ask for any questions.
I mean,
Yeah,
kind of
so-
implied that this was the Q&A portion.
Well, we didn't really say it.
Oh,
Kind of got to go
kitty,
out
sweet
there and got to
kitty.
say.
I
Come
thought
to
they
say
would
we should have
infer
let him
that.
go half an hour ago.
Ah,
It's 38.
All right,
sold
nerds.
out
I got to go to the
worldwide.
bathroom.
All right.
I got to get another
Time to
beer.
end the stream.
I need to.
Thanks for watching and
Hey, good night.
listening. Although, I apologize. I apologize for this whole show.
in general,
Mm.
You should. Yeah.
All right.
I think I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know I'm sorry. I'm hitting stop.
All right.
It's been nice. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Fairly well.